Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Assalamu alaikum students. In this lecture, I will cover the remaining topics of your chapter. So today, I will discuss briefly what is risk premium and portfolio theory, then fundamental risk versus systematic risk, and what is security market line, and the last, how changes occur in the security market line. Risk premium and portfolio theory. Here I will discuss briefly the risk premium and portfolio theory, but in chapter number 7 and chapter number 8, we will discuss it thoroughly. In a portfolio theory, we assume that all investors are rational investors and they want to maximize their profit. So, in that case, all investors hold a completely diversified market portfolio of risky assets and they borrow or lend to arrive at a risk level that is consistent with their risk preferences. So, the relevant risk measure for an individual asset is its co-movement with the market portfolio. It means that how the individual asset and the market portfolio moves together in a long run. So this co-movement is known as the systematic risk. The systematic risk basically relates the variance of the investment to the variance of the market portfolio or fluctuation of the stock prices to the fluctuation of the market portfolio. This systematic risk is measured by beta. Beta basically measures the systematic risk of an asset, or it is an index of systematic risk, or it measures the sensitivity of the individual stock returns with respect to the portfolio returns, or it measures the variance of or the fluctuation of the individual stock prices or returns with respect to the change or the variance or the fluctuation of the market portfolio returns. So beta measures this systematic risk. In a portfolio, the investors only demand for the systematic risk. And there is another risk that is known as unsystematic risk, which is a firm specific risk. So in a well-diversified portfolio, we believe that the unsystematic risk is eliminated. So the only risk that is demanded by the investor is the systematic risk, and it is measured by beta. Fundamental risk versus systematic risk. So we have studied previously that the required rate of return is a function of fundamental risk or it is a function of systematic risk. Fundamental risk basically comprises business risk, financial risk, liquidity risk, exchange rate risk, and country risk. And systematic risk refers to the portion of an individual asset's total variance attributable to the variability of the total market portfolio. The difference between the two risks is that fundamental risk is an accounting risk and the systematic risk is a measure of market risk. But there are a lot of empirical studies and they found a significant relationship between the fundamental risk and the systematic risk. So these two risks complement each other. Now we will see what is the security market line. If you have previously studied the capital asset pricing model, then you must know what is the security market line. The security market line reflects the risk return combinations available for all risky assets in the capital market at a given time. Secondly, investors would select investments that are consistent with their risk preferences. Some would consider only low risk investments, whereas others welcome high risk investments. Security market line है basically ये डिस्क्राइब करती है रिलेशनशिप बिटवीन द रिस्क एंड द रिटर्न और इस सिक्योरिटी मार्केट लाइन के ऊपर देयर आर कॉम्बिनेशंस ऑफ all risky assets in the capital market at a given time. यानी एक टाइम के ऊपर, एक पर्टिकुलर टाइम के ऊपर जितने भी रिस्की एसेट्स हैं उनके कम्बिनेशन जो है वो उस सिक्योरिटी मार्केट लाइन के ऊपर हम उसको ड्रॉ करते हैं, और इन्वेस्टर जो है उसको सेलेक्ट करता है इन्वेस्टमेंट्स को बेस्ड ऑन देयर रिस्क प्रेफरेंसेस, उसकी उसकी रिस्क प्रेफरेंसेस क्या है। तो सम इन्वेस्टर्स जो है, यानी कुछ इन्वेस्टर्स ऐसे हैं जो लो रिस्क इन्वेस्टमेंट्स जो है उनको प्रेफर करते हैं, और सम इन्वेस्टर्स ऐसे होते हैं जो कि हाई रिस्क इन्वेस्टमेंट्स जो है उनको प्रेफर करते हैं। तो वो ये सारे जो इन्वेस्टर्स हैं जिनकी रिस्क प्रेफरेंसेस डिफरेंट हैं, ये सिक्योरिटी मार्केट लाइन के ऊपर एग्जिस्ट करते हैं। Changes in SML. Three changes can occur in the initial SML line or security market line. First is individual investments can change positions on the SML because of changes in the perceived risk of the investment. For instance, if the firm increases its financial risk by adding more debt in the capital structure, this will increase the perceived risk of the investment. So the investor will move along the SML line upward. So in that case, the individual investment will change its position on the SML line. Secondly, the slope of the SML can change because of a change in the attitudes of investors toward risk. That is, investors can change the returns they require per unit of risk. It means that now the investors are requiring more return or less return for the same level of risk. So in that case, we will find an upward or a downward slope in the SML line. Third is the SML can experience a parallel shift due to a change in the real risk-free rate or the expected rate of inflation. That is a change in the nominal real risk-free rate. So it means that there is a parallel shift in the SML because there is a change in the risk premium. If the risk premium increases, the SML line will shift upward. And if the risk premium decreases, then the SML line will shift downward. Relationship between risk and return. Here you can see that we have drawn risk on the x-axis and rate of return on the y-axis. RFR represents risk-free return. The slope indicates the required return per unit of risk. And there are three different levels of risk drawn on the security market line: low risk, average risk, and high risk. So here you can see that the security market line describes the risk return relationship. Further, we can see that for the high risk, a high rate of return is expected, and for the low risk, a low rate of return is expected. Secondly, the straight security market line describes a linear relationship between the risk and the return. It means that there is a proportionate change in the rate of return with the change in the risk. So now we will see that when there is a change in the fundamental risk, how it will affect the security market line, or how the individual asset moves along the security market line. So this we will see in the next slide. Changes in the required rate of return due to movements along the security market line. So here you can see a spot, which means that the movements along the curve that reflect changes in the risk of the asset. So when there is a change in the fundamental risk or systematic risk, or there is a change in the accounting measure of risk or market measure of risk, then there will be a movement of an asset along the security market line. If the risk of an asset increases, the asset will move upward on the security market line. And if the risk of an asset decreases, then the asset moves downward on the security market line. So this movement reflects the perceived risk of an investor. Changes in the slope of the assembly. So previously we have studied that how the asset move on the security market line when there is a change in the fundamental risk or systematic risk. Now we will see that how there is a change in the slope that bring a change in the SML line. So it is first we measure the risk premium, because when there is a change in the risk premium, the slope will change and the security market line will change. So risk premium is RPI is equal to expected return I minus nominal risk-free rate of return. So RPI is basically the risk premium for asset I, and ERI is equal to the expected return for asset I, and NRFR is equal to nominal return on a risk-free asset. Market portfolio risk. The market risk premium for the market portfolio contains all the risky assets in the market can be computed. RPM is equal to ERM minus NRFR, where RPM is equal to risk premium on the market portfolio and ERM is equal to expected return on the market portfolio and NRFR is equal to expected return on a risk-free asset. So it is the difference between the expected return on the market portfolio and the nominal risk-free rate of return. We can use the stock market indices as a proxy for the market portfolio. For example, in case of Pakistan, we can use a KSE 100 index as a proxy for the market portfolio, because KSE 100 index consists of all the risky assets in the market. Change in market risk premium. So here you can see in this diagram that the new SML line moves upward from the original SML line. It means that there is a change in the market risk premium, or there is an increase in the market risk premium. The change in the market risk premium implicits that there is a change in the slope of the security market line. So when the slope of the market line increases, then the SML line will move upward from its original position, as it is shown in this case. So when there is a change in the slope of the SML, it occurs in response to the change in the attitudes of investors toward risk. So such a change demonstrates that investors want either higher or lower returns for the same risk. And the change risk premium will affect all risky investments in the market portfolio. So here you can see that for the same level of risk, the market portfolio return increases from RM to RM bar. For instance, if it is RM, if RM is equal to 10%, then RM bar is 15%. So there is a change of 5% market portfolio return. इसका मतलब ये है कि जब इन्वेस्टर्स का एटीट्यूड टुवर्ड रिस्क चेंज होता है और किसी भी वजह से वो चेंज होता है, तो वो सेम रिस्क की जो एसेट्स हैं उसके अगेंस्ट वो हाई रिटर्न्स डिमांड करते हैं. इसका मतलब ये है कि मार्केट का रिस्क प्रीमियम जो है वो इंक्रीज कर गया. और ये जो रिस्क प्रीमियम है वो सिर्फ एक एसेट के ऊपर ही नहीं होगा, बल्कि तमाम रिस्की एसेट्स जो इससे अफेक्ट होंगे. जिसकी वजह से जो सिक्योरिटी मार्केट लाइन है वो मूव कर जाएगी फ्रॉम इट्स ओरिजिनल पोजीशन और वो अपवर्ड उसकी मूवमेंट शो होगी. इसी तरह अगर वो लो रिटर्न्स डिमांड कर रहे हैं तो ऑब्वियसली इसकी डायरेक्शन जो है वो ओरिजिनल एसएमएल लाइन से नीचे की तरफ होगी. इस तरीके से जो है वो सिक्योरिटी मार्केट लाइन मूव करती है when there is a change in the market risk premium. Capital market conditions, expected inflation and the security market line. So here you can see that there is a parallel shift in the security market line. So now the new SML line moves upward from the original SML line. So a shift in the SML reflects a change in the expected real growth, change in market conditions or change in expected rate of inflation. And such a change will affect all investments in the market. पिछली स्लाइड में हमने ये देखा था कि जो सिक्योरिटी मार्केट लाइन है वो अपवर्ड शिफ्ट हुई, पैरेलल शिफ्ट नहीं हुई, क्योंकि वहां पे जो चेंज था वो मार्केट रिस्क प्रीमियम में था, लेकिन यहाँ पे जो चेंज है वो पैरेलल शिफ्ट है। अब यहाँ पे जो रिस्क का लेवल है वो भी इंक्रीज कर गया है प्रीवियस लेवल से, और रेट ऑफ रिटर्न जो है वो भी इंक्रीज कर गया है अकॉर्डिंगली। इसका मतलब ये है कि जो मार्केट कंडीशंस है उनमें कुछ चेंज आई, या हमारी जो ग्रोथ है उसमें कुछ चेंज आई। इस तरह जो एक्सपेक्टेड इन्फ्लेशन है उसमें कुछ चेंज आई, तो उसका जो इफेक्ट है वो तमाम सिक्योरिटीज के ऊपर आएगा, जिसकी वजह से हमने एक नया रिस्क का लेवल अटेन किया है और नया रिटर्न का लेवल अटेन किया है। और इसी वजह से जो एसएमएल लाइन है वो पैरेलल शिफ्ट हुई, ना कि उसकी स्लोप में कुछ चेंज आया। तो अब हमने एक नई इक्विलिब्रियम लाइन जो है वो अटेन की है आफ्टर द चेंज इन द capital market conditions and expected inflation or expected inflation. So I think it is enough for today, and inshallah we will discuss it further in the interactive session. Thank you very much.